my beard's like this.
Is it?
This is the longest I've gone without shaving. So yeah.
Yeah, no, my husband also looks like a caveman these days. So it's not just
Yeah,
you.
we all do. We all do. So it's one of those things where we all look like we are from some cave somewhere. So, but we shall survive.
How are you though? It's so good to
I'm,
see your face.
I'm good, man. I can't complain much.
Yeah.
Carrying on with the grind.
Yeah.
There's really nothing to do besides work.
Mm.
And really plan for that known. I think for me it's about the world as we know it has changed completely. There's no more normal. There's no more what we used to know. So I think it's about preparing ourselves for the new norm or the new future.
Yeah. No, definitely. Yeah. And obviously it's even changed our approach and how we also package sports. You know, the digital era is on the rise as well. And COVID-19 also forces us to be quite innovative in how we do sports now, you know. So it's going to be very interesting times, especially after the lockdown, because life as you know it, of course, is not going to be the same. So it's going to be very interesting to see how we also adapt as people.
True.
And and people like you in particular who work in the communication space for organizations, how you communicate, technologies that you're going to be using, and you know, all these different things. Do you find that it's a bit tricky, difficult for you?
I think tricky, not necessarily difficult. Tricky in a sense that now more than ever, or now as opposed to before, you are forced to start thinking about how then do you do things differently? You know, how then do you start appealing to, or how then do you then keep communication going with not only the players but also the administrators and the fans of the game itself. So I think to a large extent, you know, people have been forced to start thinking as if there is no box.
Yeah.
Right? So I think it's been tricky in that sense. But also it has, you know, given us an opportunity to start finding alternative ways of creating and generating content.
And I mean, Nnusi, I know you personally. I know you way back when. I think even before you joined Netball, if I'm not mistaken.
Before Netball, yeah.
Before Netball as well. And I think there's people who might not even know who this Nnusi Gazi guy is. So tell us a bit who Nnusi is, because I know you went to Vaal, university.
Yes, I was at Vaal University back in the days. I always struggle with that question, but so maybe just to give you context, and I think maybe I'll start at Vaal, because I think that's a nice base to start from. So I went to the Vaal University of Technology, and I studied computer sciences.
Yes.
And then so came back after varsity, then started working for my previous high school back in Rustenburg. I was there for like a year, and then moved. You know, like anybody who's from a mining town, somehow you end up working for the mines because there is almost everything else that you know. So I worked for a mining company for about 2.5 years, 3 years. Then moved to Cape Town to go pursue, you know, my career in a different city, in a different world where I didn't know anybody. So I think after 3.5 years in Cape Town, moved back to Joburg. But I think then I was a bit matured, and I had a sense of exactly what I want my life to look like. And I then said I want to go into doing TV and radio.
Yeah.
Which was it was something that I'd never done before, but it's something that I've always wanted to do. So I then decided I'm going to go into radio, and I literally there's a station in Midrand called Mix FM. I walked in there and I said to them, I need a job. I don't have a demo, but I can audition for you on the spot. The guy's like, okay, you are here, so let's do it. So he
How old were you?
I was when I started radio, I think I was 25, 26, somewhere there. So he then said to me, you've got 5 minutes. we've got a sports bulletin coming in 10 minutes, so you need to prepare a sports bulletin, right? He put me in a room, says, there's a laptop, there's a piece of paper, see what you can do. I then put together literally a 5.5 minute sports bulletin. And then I auditioned live on air. And then he then said to me, sports coming at 1:30, it's now 1:15. So by 1:20, you need to be ready, we're going. So we went, I think it was on a Tuesday, Wednesday. He then said to me, so I then did my sports bulletin on his show. The following day, calls me and says to me, you can start on Sunday. We've got a sports show on Sunday. We don't have a presenter. So you've got an entire hour to yourself. And I didn't know where to start. I didn't know where to start. But I started, I then started listening to other sports shows. I think then there was a show called Discovery Sports Center on Metro FM. Before it was called MSW. I then listened to other guys from other radio stations who were doing sports, just to get a sense of exactly what is that you do in sport within a sports show. And I started my show on, I think it was the 17th of July, and I've never looked back. So that's how I got into the media space. And then from there, I then started doing TV, but TV wasn't really my thing. So I joined Urban Brew Studios, did a show called Playlist. I think it was on One Gospel with Carly Fields. So I did the show for like 6 weeks, and I said to myself, I'm not about this TV life, so I'm out.
Well, you were presenting it.
Yeah. So I then decided TV is not for me. And then I left TV and I started doing radio. But radio was a hobby that I did, right?
Yeah.
So from doing a sports show, then moved to doing weekend breakfast show. And then I still had a day job. So I had a 9 to 5 that I was doing, and then weekends I would do radio. And when I realized that I wanted to do sports PR, back in 2013, Man City were in South Africa. So they were here for their Africa pre-season tour, as they called it. So they came to SA, and then they were supposed to play against AmaZulu and SuperSport. So their global PR agency, Edelman, then we're looking for people in South Africa to come and assist them with PR on the ground. So that was my first PR client back in 2013. And then from there, I then did the ICC T20 World Cup Trophy Tour in Zimbabwe, South Africa, Kenya, and I think we went to 4 countries in Africa. So that's how I then got into sports PR. And then I think, and that's how this journey that I'm on really started. I think it started as early as 2013 officially, even then I wasn't really sure about what exactly is it that I wanted to do. So I think gradually over time I then started finding my niche. 2016 I then decided to slowly leave corporate South Africa. I was in music, I was in the arts, I was in sports, I was all over the place. Up until early 2017, I decided, you know what, I'm going to focus mainly on sports. And I've never looked back. I mean, I did COSAFA under 20. I've done work for Platinum Stars, the football club, before they got relegated. I did work for Temba Bavuma with his cricket foundation, JP Dumini as well. And then, last year, then started doing work for Netball South Africa.
So you've done, okay, I want to go in sections now, because it looks like you've just gone across all these industries. And then I think you could have gone.
Well, that's if I haven't been one. So
you want to tell us something?
No. So I mean, I grew up in a very religious family, and church was the only thing that we did. So I don't think I've really qualified to be called Mfundisi.
Or perhaps maybe it's your
Part of
next
my
move
youth.
after Netball South Africa.
Can we not go there? Can we just not go there? I will do anything but that.
Oh wow. Okay, so tell us a bit about the music scene. I mean, you spoke about that you also did a bit of PR there as well, a bit of media stuff there. Just tell us about the industry behind the scenes, because now you've done media and PR, marketing, branding, communications. Okay, all of this falls under the media umbrella for all these different industries. How different are they in terms of packaging the different media, the different mediums for for all of them? I mean, even just from your cricket to your netball, it's also not the same,
Yeah, the different
yeah.
altogether.
So maybe take me through the different industries and how different the media back end part is.
Look, I think I've been privileged enough or blessed enough to to work with corporate clients, right? So, and in corporate, I worked with guys from mining to hospitality, to retail and banking and all of this. So you then get a sense of how everybody is different in their own right? So
Yeah.
there is no blanket approach for this. So each client needs a specific or a customized approach to how you take the story or how you take the product to market.
Yeah.
And the same thing goes with music. And I think when you start comparing, how we consume music as a society is very different from other markets, per se. So how the South African market consume music is different from how the English will do it or how the Americans will do it, right? But I think what I've identified over time in South Africa is that, so you've got independent artists, right? So people that are not signed to any label, who are then wanting to do their own thing, right? And as they should be. But then we don't really get to invest a lot of money and time and resources in the PR and the marketing side of the brand, right? Whereas if you sign to a major, they have got a team that works around the clock to ensure that somebody is focused on marketing, somebody's focused on sales, somebody's focused on other things. But as an independent, so the trick is educating people about how PR is an important part of your brand. It's not a nice to have. It's not a by the way thing. It's something that you need to invest time and money into. Because for me to be able to buy your music, somebody should have made noise about you. And it's not your friend down the street. It's not there's a lot of logic that goes behind the planning of a launch of an album, for instance. So there's a lot of mechanisms that go into how then do we take this product to market. So people don't really and this is based on, I think there were one or two artists that I've really worked with who understood the importance of investing money in PR. There were a lot of there were a few artists that I've really worked with that understood. And if I can mention one of them, I think Brian Temba was the one person who understood the importance of PR. And purely because he had lived outside of the South African market. So he had been exposed to how the English and how the Americans, did things versus how we do things here. So it was easy for me to say to him, listen, we are taking this approach, and for that to happen, we need X, Y, and Z. And then there were others that thought, well, I don't have money for PR, so we'll see what we can do without this thing. So I think it all boils down to education. So people might have said that PR is not a nice to have. It's not something that you just do as a by the way. There's a lot of I've always said to people, there's always a lot of logic behind the madness that we do. People think PR people are just going out to have parties and party all night. Needless to say, that's not even what we do. I mean, I don't remember the last time I really went to an event and I was enjoying myself as an attendee, because half the time, if not all the time, I'm working.
You're working, yeah.
Yeah.
So who are some of the artists you manage outside of Brian Timber? Name drop.
Now you want me to spill the bins. So apart from him, I did a bit of work for Kabomo. I've
Ah.
worked with indirectly with the likes of Afrotraction, and from 2017, 2018 Idols, worked with Tabelo Sau. I think she was top 9. We worked up until 2018 together. I think those are people that I can think of just top of my head. Oh, there was another lady called Michaela Jones that I also worked with, who has since gone and done other things for herself outside of music.
So now, as you move away from the music aspect of things, what is one thing you take away from the music industry that you've learned, and one thing that you didn't quite like about it?
Well, I think the one thing that I really didn't like about music, look, I love music. That's what I live for. I live for music, and I think I'm still one of the few people that still go collect music, and I still go and buy CDs, and I'm now trying to, accumulate as many vinyls as I possibly can. So I love music and I live for music, and I think it's the one thing that really is my go-to, whether I'm happy or sad or in between. Music is the place that I go to. So I think the one thing that I really didn't like about it, and I think it cut across all industries, is the politics and the backstabbing that goes there, right? And I think there are some of the people that I tried working with that lived in their heads, and I just couldn't do it. And I think it's a problem that exists not only in music, but it exists across various industries where people start seeing themselves as superstars. People start seeing themselves as bigger than the industry, and I think that is the one thing I hate about the industry that I find myself in, across the board, whether it's in sport, whether it's in music, whether it's in the arts. You always find people that think that they're bigger than the brand, or think that they're bigger than the industry itself. And I think it's a sad case, because some of the people are very talented and they're very good at what they do, but because of the approach to the industry, then they somehow fizzle out, and there's nothing that we can do about it.
Yeah. And now you find yourself in a very important position in that organization that you are wearing so proudly right now, Netball South Africa, and you occupy a very important office, because you are our mouthpiece, and you are the person who also represents the brand. And just before we even get into the nitty-gritties, just how has your experience been just working in Netball South Africa?
So just to maybe paint a very interesting picture briefly. So prior to me doing work for Netball South Africa, I had never been to a netball match before, right?
I remember you said that.
Like any other boy, I'd seen netball matches, but I was not there for the sport. I was there for other things, right? So prior to me working for NSA, I had never really watched the netball match before. I didn't even understand the rules behind it. I didn't even know anything about. I knew that people were tossing the ball around and then somebody needed to score. So 2018, I then decided to do a bit of research on various sporting codes, right? Because then I was looking for clients to service. So I then moved from cricket to rugby to soccer, all the way to netball, and I realized that there was nothing really much said about netball, right? And that for me was worrying. That, I mean, netball is supposedly the biggest female sport in the country, or even in the continent, right? So for us to have very little being said about it is a problem. So I then put together a presentation, and I didn't know where to start, right? So I then started, basking in the dark and saying, I need to find somebody at netball that can assist me. I looked high and low, and there was very little information that I could work with and work from. Up until 2018 November, October, November, when I bumped into the president, and I said to her, "Listen, I need to speak to you." Why? I said, "Because I want to pitch an idea to you that I think you might be interested in hearing." She then said, "Okay, that's fine. I will contact you." She then goes 3-4 weeks without getting back to me. And then one morning at 5 o'clock, I get an email from her saying, "I've got an opening in my diary tomorrow at 9 o'clock. Can you meet?" I then said, "Yeah, sure, I can meet." She said to me, "I'll send you a meeting request." She then sends me a meeting request, and I had to drive all the way to Polokwane to go present, right?
Yeah.
So I don't one I don't know where I'm going. Two, the person that I'm meeting with, I'm not sure if she's really interested in seeing me or she's just ticking a box, right? So drive all the way to Peter Mokaba Stadium. I get there, I present my case, and then I leave, right? The president then says to me, "Oh, by the way, I'm leaving for Singapore with the minister tomorrow, so I'll come back sometime in November. When I come back, we've got a Diamond Challenge happening. So maybe as a trial for you, you can start doing PR for Diamond Challenge." And I'm like, "Okay, what is Diamond Challenge?" Right? He's like, "No, you must go do your research."
Did you ask her that, or were you saying that in your head?
No, I asked, "What is Diamond Challenge?" Because remember, I had never seen this game before, right? She then says, "No, you go do your research." And I then, after I leave her office, I then go to a coffee shop and I sit and I start doing research on what is this Diamond Challenge thing. That is always a tournament that happens between a few African countries. Okay, so what else can I do? What should I be doing here? And I couldn't find anything really, so it was a struggle. But a lot of PR was done around that, and I think that's how I got into netball. So because this was in November 2018, I only got appointed March 2019. To come and really assist them with one, really putting structures in place as far as PR is concerned, and really start telling the netball stories, and really ensure that the sport in its magnitude gets to be represented rightfully so, and really start telling the good stories about ball, and where we are currently, where we are heading, and what the future looks like for all of us.
I think, Mina, for me, one of the most frustrating things about netball in particular, when I was trying to look for information, some few years back, it's very hard to find information. Things are not, they're either not well packaged, or, unless you get the direct, media press release, you don't really have much information, and that was really frustrating for me, especially when you wanted even things like stats or all of those things. There's a huge gap in terms of the media aspect and packaging those things and availability of those things for people who, like yourself, who didn't know what the Diamond Challenge is, and you are new to the sport and you really want to get information about what is this challenge, what is this, and also you also want to cross-reference with other articles as well, but you find that it's so limiting that you're not even sure if this information is correct, because even how it looks very shady, So now, Sisbonga obviously Twitter, because now you go to the, the page in Netball SA, but it's very frustrating. Was that maybe one of the gaps that you saw? Was that a problem that you also encountered as you gradually started doing PR and, getting into this very important role of media in netball?
I think that was one of the bigger problems that I encountered, right? Where there was very little information at one's disposal, right? And I've always said to people that as a brand, whether as a person or as an entity, you need digital presence. The minute you don't have digital presence, then there's a problem, because not everybody's got access to you directly. So people need to, find information about you somewhere that exists, right? So that for me was the one big problem that I encountered, to say I don't understand how such a big federation could have very little information about it digitally anyway, right? So I couldn't find information about, who the former president was or who the former captain was. Information was very scattered. It was all over the place and very scattered, which is a problem, because when you compare this to rugby and soccer and cricket, if I need information about who the former president of Cricket South Africa is, I could easily find it on the net, right? And I then said, why is it that we are living in an era, a digital era, and then your presence is not well documented? So that for me was the one big problem. The second part was about information about the players, about the coaches, about the teams.
Yes.
Things like those which didn't, they existed somewhere in a file, but not necessarily accessible to me and you, people that may want this information. But also at the same time, I then said, maybe there's an opportunity for one to come in and really steer the ship in a different direction. And not that I've got the magic powers to do that, but I have the skills, that will enable me to somehow steer the ship in a different direction. It was a scary thing in the beginning, because here I am as a male, as a guy, really, in an office full of women who have played the sport at the highest level, who have been administrators of the sport at the highest level, and I come here as somebody who knows absolutely nothing about the sport, right? So it was scary in the beginning, but at the same time, the upside was that then at least I'm able to then make decisions without being emotional about things, right? Because I'm not invested in the sport as someone that has played the sport. I'm invested in the sport from a storytelling point of view. So I think that to a large extent worked very well for me, and I can proudly say that the problems that you had in the past about not finding information are exactly that. They're a thing of the past, right? So where over the past 11 months that I've been there, one of my biggest things that I wanted to do was to start documenting things and really start packaging, so that if I need information about anything, then I know exactly that it's stored somewhere digitally where everybody can access it. So the past 11 months have really been about documenting and really making sure that all of these things are archived and stored somewhere where people 10, 15, 20 years from now will be able then to go back and read about Netball South Africa in 2019 and beyond, or even before 2019.
And archiving is very important. I mean, I know with us being a journalist, we are very grateful, because it makes our job easier in terms of also trying to find that information. But have you found that it's also strengthened your relationship with journalists, because now there's information that's accessible to the likes of me and the other ones?
Look, I think it has, to a large extent, and I'm not here to try and make myself look any good in any way. But I think one of the biggest frustrations that I had, one of the biggest fights that I had with journalists when I started, was them saying to me, there is information on the net about this and that and that and that. And I remember the one time I got a call at 6 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday from a journalist saying to me, Nnusi, I'm looking for information on the net and I can't find anything about it. Where is it? And I need it for my bulletin at 7 o'clock, right? And I said to her, well, I don't know where that is, but I can find something for you. What exactly are you looking for, right? And she told me exactly what she was looking for, and I, ran around on a Sunday morning and I found her bits and pieces of what she was looking for. And I said to her, this is the best that I can do, given the time frames that I had. But I will then ensure that this does not happen again, ever, right? So, and I think that, helped me in a way, because then I then started, saying, I was very honest with people about where I was and the challenges that I had. So at no point did I lie or did I sugarcoat things about the realities that I was dealing with on a daily basis, right? And I think people need it. People need to know your honesty. People need to know your truth, right? And I think I did exactly that. I said to them, listen, I understand your frustrations and challenges. I acknowledge that there is a serious need for information to be readily available to you. and I will do my utmost best to ensure that this changes over time. And I think my relationship with sports media in general has significantly improved. And I think also at the same time, the interpretation of news from netball to general public has really also improved, because journalists now believe in the brand. And I don't think people are making a hype about netball because of 2023. But I think people are making hype about it now because of access to information and access to spokespeople and players at all times. So, and I think that in itself has really helped. It's been a two-way street too. So where I know that the people that I can always rely on, for them to start telling the stories, and the people that have been able to rely on me to give them the correct information, so that to ensure that there is no broken telephone in terms of what the federation is doing, and to start filtering the message.
Network, are you back?
I'm here. I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, your network froze just a bit today, so I don't know. Yeah, I didn't quite get what you said at the end, but I got the crux of what you were saying. And being a media officer, I mean, there's so much you do because we won, and you are trying to,
amongst other things, yes.
Yes. Amongst other things, because people don't know just how much you do. Because whenever I see Miss Cecilia, the netball president, you're always there, and I'm like, where's Nnusi? This is like I don't know, a younger brother or older son, or I don't know what to say, but you are so close.
I fit all of those criteria.
All of them. Those. Because you're always there. I remember the time you told me that when you said Mama asked you to buy her a shirt, and I'm like,
yeah,
wow, Nnusi, I don't know that's in your job description.
Listen, half the time I don't know what's in my job description, but I will execute it.
That's what I call going beyond the call of duty.
Look, I think Mbali, to be very honest with you, so, and I think I've said this a couple of times to people that that people look at us doing what we do and they think we're doing a job, right?
Yeah.
And indirectly it is a job because somebody's paying you to do that, right? But for me it's more than that. I think for me it's about, I've always been passionate about storytelling, right? So what really tilted the scale for me, or what really ensured that things worked in my favor, I then had been blessed enough to find my passion and then merit to my calling. All right. So in a sense that, so I don't look at what I do as a job, right? It's a job because somebody pays me to do it. But I think it's a calling for me because I'm doing something that I'm really passionate about, and it doesn't feel like a job. So I feel like somebody's paying me to do my hobby, right? So and I think to a large extent, it starts to show in the how I do things, because it's not a job. It doesn't feel like I must do this. It's something that I wake up in the morning, I'm excited about doing. And I think that is where the difference is. And that's why and I think maybe that answers your question about, I'm always there. It doesn't matter what time of the day it is, I'm always there. Because to me, I don't feel like I'm doing a job. I just feel like I am just fulfilling my purpose in life. I feel like I'm just fulfilling that which I've been called to do. Right? So I mean, for me, it's really about understanding the role that I'm employed to do, right? But also understanding what in my head success looks like, right? Mm-hmm. So, because for me, I've always said, the day I see netball being given the same respect as any other male-dominated sport is the day that I'll say to myself, I've done that which I've been called to do, right? And I think we are gradually getting to that point where we are starting to see netball in the same breath and the same level as a cricket or as a soccer or as a rugby, right? We're not in competition in any way, but I'm just saying, for me, it's been about how then do we start telling the netball story that no one is speaking about, right? How then do we? I mean, if I can tell you now that 2 years ago we didn't have as many players playing abroad than we have now. Out of a 12-man squad, we've got 7 of our players playing abroad, or 8 of our players playing abroad.
Yeah.
Right. So if we don't tell these stories, no one's going to tell our stories. Right. So for me, it's about starting to speak about the success that netball is bringing, not only to the elites, but it's about how then do you see a child in Hammersdale or in Kuankuwa or in Tlatlaganyani or anywhere in the rural places of South Africa speaking about netball, and then them having access, to this kind of content. For me, that's what I'm aiming for, to start telling the netball story beyond our boundaries and beyond our comfort zones. Because you and I have got access to the internet and pay TV. We're able to access all of these things freely, or not necessarily freely, but it's easier for us to access these things, right? So but we're not telling stories about kids in Lebwahome who don't have netball kits, or who don't have the nets or the balls. So for me, it's about how then do we get the message to those kids, but also how then do we tell their own stories, because it's important that we start telling their stories about, they see themselves as the next Bongiwe Msomi, they see themselves as the next Carla Pretorius, they see themselves as the next Sunday Living Man, but how then do we then, one is about understanding what their goals are. Secondary to that is about how then do we start telling their stories, and thirdly, how then do we enable them, to reach their goals without taking them out of their own communities? Because the problem is that we go and find these kids and we take them out of their communities, bring them to plush places, right? Give them access to the world, but we've not really solved the bigger problem. Yes, we've made the life of one child a success, but what about the other 15 that she was playing with? How then do we then? So my question has always been, what then are we doing to improve the lives of kids in what is known as impoverished communities?
Sure. That is a mouthful, and it's very important to also. No, it's very important because a lot of the time I think we see this even in our South African history, just generally, that it's difficult if someone else is telling your history as opposed to you the one telling them. So it's very important to also be the person that disseminates that information, because when it comes from a secondary source coming back to you, it's already a bit skewed and not as authentic, as it's expected to be. Because I mean, when you look at netball as well, yes, it is the biggest female sport, but when you look at the grassroots level of it, when you look at netball in schools, netball in townships, I mean, the stories that you are speaking about, the stories is abobonyi, how they grew up, where they grew up, Abo Pumza Maweni, where they come from, Apo Zanele Vimbela, where, just how difficult things are. I mean, when you also look at your likes of Dumsani Chauke, at one of the Women in Sports seminars, she shared just how difficult it was for her, where she faced a bit of racism, in netball. And these are the stories that are not told. And unfortunately, we are told to just be a good player, work hard, and things will work out for you. But we don't tell about the struggles, the scars that these athletes carry to the top.
Look, I generally don't subscribe to just be a good player and carry on with the job, right? Because then you are not solving the problem, but you are enabling the system to carry on and continue as per the status quo, right? So, I mean, my theory in life is that until the victims or until the hunters or until the hunted tell their own stories, the hunter will always take the credit. Right? So meaning that we need to get to a point where we start telling our own stories, the way we know our stories to be, right? Without relying on any other third party or third force to start telling their own stories. And because if that happens, then the story starts to suit their narrative and exclude us, the people that are supposed to be telling our own stories. Number one. Number two, if we don't tell our stories, then we are depriving the next generation of the next generation of the truth about where we come from and
Yeah.
how we ended up being where we are. And then to a large extent, they will not appreciate where they are because they don't know where they come from.
Yeah.
They grew up in this world and the world was like this.
Yeah.
But they don't know the amount of sacrifice that went into them being where they are.
Mm-hmm.
They don't understand what it took for them to be where they are. So it's important that we start telling our own stories. And I always want to go back and say, so PR is not about the feel good stories. PR is not about dressing up and going to a party. PR is not about on match day you are sitting and you are folding your arms and you're watching the sport. Right?
Yeah.
Funny enough, I was saying to one of your colleagues the other day that we were in Liverpool for 10 days for the 2019 World Cup. I don't remember sitting down watching a full game. The only game that I sat and watched was the final. So I didn't get to sit down and watch an entire hour of netball, right? Because I was working for the entire period. I only got to see our matches when we got back home, and then there were reruns on TV.
Wow.
Right. So that's the amount of detail that goes into the work that we do. At press conferences, I don't remember the time when I was sitting and really listening to the press conference, because 9 out of 10 times I'm running around somewhere, finding things for people and ensuring that when the press conference is done, there's adequate space for one-on-ones for everybody who's there, who may want to have interviews with either the coaches or the players or the president or whoever, right? So I mean, people look at what we do and think it's just a fancy title that we have, but a lot of work goes into doing what we do, because ultimately my responsibility at the end of the day is to ensure that the right stories are being told.
So what do you do in instances then of damage control? Because if also at in moments at press conferences where we know people are people, where maybe someone will say something that they shouldn't say, and maybe because you are running around and you're busy, and obviously because of the manpower as well, it's not your fault, kind of maybe miss that. How do you then, as Nnusi, the comms manager or the media officer, deal with such things as damage control and reputation repairing?
Look, surprisingly, or yes, funny enough, or surprisingly so, I feel like I've got my hands on the pulse at all times, right? So I may not be present in the room, but for some reason I have got an idea of exactly what's going on. And one of the things that we really speak about is why are we here?
Yeah.
What are we communicating? And what are we not communicating? So I always have got briefing sessions with everybody every single time, an hour before the press conference starts, right? Before any public appearance, we have briefing sessions about understand why we are here. So we're not here for any other thing. We are here to communicate an X thing, right? If it's something, if anybody asks a question that is not in line with what we're trying to address, so we will not dismiss them. We will take the conversation offline, or we'll take it somewhere else. But and so that no one is caught with their pants down, number one, and no one really says things that they're not supposed to be saying. I mean, we've had instances and incidents where once or twice, things that were not supposed to be said in the public domain were said, right? And my thing is that when that happens, that's not a time for you to panic. That's a time for you to say, now that this thing has been said, how then do we fix it?
Yeah.
And I mean, we've had, I think, 1 or 2 incidents where something like that happened, and I said to them, it happened. We can't take it back. Let's move on, and then let's go back and regroup, and then let's and repair whatever damage this may have caused. And I think that helps and that works. Where one, you don't just throw people to the wolves and expect them to swim and figure things out themselves, because not everybody is able to fend for themselves. So it's important that you brief and you prepare people properly and accordingly every single time.
What has been one of your biggest challenges of managing this institution? Because sometimes I know we've had off the record conversations, and
Yeah.
there's been moments where you butt heads with certain people as well. And obviously you are also one of the newer people, but not so new anymore, but you were one of the newer people coming in, into the team, and really trying to reestablish this particular department. What has been some of the biggest challenges that you faced?
Look, butting heads is the nature of the business, right?
Yeah.
I think at everywhere you go, that is bound to happen. But I think my biggest frustration or my biggest challenge has always been historical legacies, right? And by that I mean, where people are saying to you, but we've always done things like this, right? And people really being resistant to new ways of doing things, or being reluctant to trying alternative way of doing things. So I think that in the beginning was my biggest frustration, because whenever you come people always say to you, yeah, we hear you, but we've always done things like this, right? And that was my biggest frustration. Number two was, people really not playing open cards with you and really telling you the seriousness, or I think people not really being openly honest with you about what is going on.
Yeah.
Because for me to be able to execute my job as best as I could, I need all facts. So I don't need half of it. I need everything on the table so that I know exactly what I'm dealing with. In the beginning, those were my two biggest challenges, where one, I didn't have access to everything that I needed, purely because people saw me as an outsider for some odd reason. And secondary to that was historical legacies. We've always done things like this, therefore we will carry on doing things like this. So I then adopted an approach that says we will demolish all historical structures. We'll start rebuilding from scratch and let's see what happens. So
hey, now you're touching a nerve.
Exactly. So I mean if so it was either we demolish the historical structures or we find alternative ways of doing things. But we couldn't stick to one, because I mean the fact that you've been doing things like this for so long clearly says to you it's not working because it's not yielding the desired results, right? So either we demolish it or we find other ways without touching your precious historical legacies.
Are there one or two historical legacies that you can share with us, like things that maybe the organization did not want to change? Because I mean, the nature of it is that we know that the history of netball is that it's a historically white sport. So maybe if you can share.
Look, so I'll give you an example. So look at how the other sporting codes do things, right? So if Mbali becomes a centurion, right? So she plays 100th game against Swaziland, right? In Pretoria. So the federation will then give them a memorabilia. Either it's a jersey that says Mbali Sigidi 100, that symbolizes, that you're playing your centurion today. And then there's a big hoo-ha around it, because it's a huge milestone for any player anywhere in the world, right? Whereas then I then get into a federation or into a sport where 100th is just well done, and then life carries on.
Yeah.
And I then said, no, that's not how you should be doing this. And then the response is, no, but we've always done it like this. Okay, so are you open to changing things? Not necessarily. I'm like, well, if I'm a player, I need to know that my contribution to the sport is valued, right?
Yeah.
So yes, I might get some monetary incentive at the end of the day, which I appreciate, but I think it would be nice for me to stand in front of the fans and be given a token of appreciation for my efforts. Right? So something that minute makes a big difference in the world, right? The other things are like, just operational things that I just feel like could be tweaked and changed here and there, where if I need all jumping through the hoops,
yeah,
right? This has not been the case, and I'm like, well, so I mean, all of that is a thing of the past now. So where if I feel like we need to celebrate Mbali because Mbali has become a centurion, I've got the powers to do exactly that without the consultative process of saying, I was thinking of doing this, is it okay? I do it, and then if it's wrong, I'll own up. If it's right, then life carries on.
So now, how has it been working with Miss Cecilia? Like we had mentioned earlier that you guys look so close, but just how has it been just working with her, and how has your relationship evolved over the past couple of months?
So here's something that I really need to, and she and I always joke about it, right?
Yeah.
So prior to me meeting her in her office that cold Monday or that cold day in March in Polokwane, I had never had any interactions with her. So she and I don't have any past relationships before that day. So we had never had conversations, or we had never spoken or met or had a drink prior to that. So our working relationship started on that day, and it has evolved, right? And for one big reason, I think I am always looking for people that are willing to do the work, right? I'm always looking for people that are prepared to roll up their sleeves and do what needs to be done for the sport, right? And Cecilia Molokwane is that one person. So our relationship is based on a few values, right, or a few pillars. One is both of us have got the same idea of where we want the sport to be from a storytelling point of view, right? Number two, our relationship is based on trust and respect, right? Where she trusts my judgment or she trusts my opinion as far as telling the netball story, right? And then she values my input in how we do things, and the same goes for her. I mean, she and I have got fights that no one know about, where we don't agree on a couple of things, but ultimately we then say what's in the best interest of the sport, and then we make a decision based on what is in the best interest of the sport or of the federation. And I think people have always thought we knew each other before, and I said, well, we don't know. She doesn't even know where I live. She doesn't know if I've got a pet or not, right? So our relationship is purely based on that. And I think the same goes with everybody that I happen to have an interaction with within the federation, where I've always said to them, let's understand why my role exists. So why am I in this position that I find myself in? And let me tell you how I need assistance from each and every single one of you. And let me tell you how your input in my life makes my job here very simple. The lack thereof of your input makes my job very difficult to do. Right. So and I think that cut across the board with the CEO, with the president, with people that are responsible for events, with people that are events for branding and all of those things, where I've always played open cards with everybody around. Why am I here? And the why I'm here is not for any other thing, but is to ensure that we continue telling the netball story and making netball as prevalent as any other sporting code in this country.
Are you close to any of the players?
Yeah, I've got very good relationships with all of the players for some odd reason. So both at national level and at domestic level, right? So I got introduced to the national team last year, just before what tournament was happening? So they had a training camp in preparation for the World Cup, right? So I then got introduced to them then, and also I think the time spent with them in Wales and in Liverpool helped, because then it was just us, after training session, it was just us having conversations about who am I, what is that I'm doing, who are they, and what are they doing, and we started speaking about who they are when the green and gold is off, and then the same thing went with the teams that played in the TNL, because we had a meeting with all of the players and all the teams really, and I got introduced there to say this is who I am and this is what I do, and I've really made it my objective to really start interacting with teams so that they don't see me as this other guy that just comes when he needs something from us, but it was just to really come in and sit with them during one of the training sessions and say, who are you and what do you want? If you are a netball player, and I say to you, I need an interview from you, what do you want? So I think I've had, very open and honest conversations with everybody about what my role entails and how and why I'm there and how they can make my life slightly easier, and also ask them how can I make theirs easier, because not everybody is comfortable enough to speak in front of cameras. So but then how then do I make that easier for you? How then do we make it simpler for you so that it doesn't feel like a chore? So I mean, initially there will be a lot of resistance, but I think as people start trusting you, and there's that level of comfort, between everybody, it then became easier.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no, we are getting close to the end. It's almost an hour. We've been talking for almost an hour now, and I'm like, and I just feel like I just scratched the surface with you, but I feel like we have so many conversations, and they're always ongoing. But now just talking netball and just the future now, because just how difficult is it planning ahead, because there's not much movement, obviously we also have the 2023 World Cup as well. I'm sure that netball's also trying to trying to plan ahead, getting ready, because you have to start years in advance, of course. And obviously there's also the junior tournaments as well that have been on hold as well, but now you're looking forward to planning ahead post COVID-19. Just maybe speak to us about plans, if there's been a bit of a hindrance, or if planning is still going full steam ahead, or you're just doing it a different way now.
Look, I think the impact of COVID-19 has really affected everybody, equally so. And I mean, there were plans that were put in place already late last year, early this year for the 2020 calendar, right? So things like the under 21 training camps had to be suspended. The senior Spar Proteas team training camps had to be suspended. We were supposed to be starting with the Telkom Netball League in the next 10 days, right? So that also on its own has been suspended. So the plans were there. The plans got tweaked because we thought we'll have a 3-week suspension. The 3 weeks became 5 weeks. We are now in somewhat limbo. We don't know what's going to happen. So it's been really difficult, planning for the unknown, right? But I've always said that it's better to be prepared than not be prepared at all. So plans can always be changed, and that's why our plans have been very fluid and very liquid in terms of we've been able to adapt them and change them as we went along. But it's been frustrating. It's been challenging. It's been stressful because we had a plan in the beginning of the year that we presented that got signed off across all boards. So from the sponsors, to the federation. So we had green light across the board in terms of these are the dates. This is what needs to happen. So when the lockdown started, we then had to say, okay, let's change this a bit and let's move it out by a month. So we moved it by a month, and then within the second week of the lockdown, we got another 14 days extension to the lockdown. And then we then decided, you know what, let's just put everything on ice up until we know for sure whether we're coming or we're going. So it's been really frustrating from planning, from a logistics point of view. It's been a nightmare. So we have the Four Nations tournament that's supposed to be taking place in September, where South Africa will be playing against New Zealand, England, and in Australia. So that on its own is also another question mark, right? But before we even get there, we still have to have the under 21 Africa qualifiers in Uganda, right? So that also is been suspended because we're not allowed to travel anywhere in the world, right? So that has impacted everybody from a planning point of view and from a commercial point of view as well, because all of these things cost money. To move things around like this costs money. So financially, I think it's been a strenuous period for everybody. From a logistics point of view, it's been frustrating as well, and I think it impacts everybody. From a player to a coach, because you can train alone, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're match fit. Right? So then it brings a whole new level, or a whole new layer. So in terms of now that people have been training individually, how then do we get them to match fit? So yes, this affects everybody, and it's an opportunity again for everybody to really go press the reset button and say, I can do better than I did in the past.
Yeah.
Right. So I think there's been a blessing and a curse at the same time, where it's a curse in a sense that people really can't do what they love to do, which is playing netball and really executing netball events. But at the same time, it's been a time to sit back and reflect and say, I've done things like this and they've worked to this point. How can I then make them better than they were before? So that's how I've looked at it and say, I mean, for me personally, I've said we did netball this way last year, and it seemed to have yielded the desired results last year. Now that the world or life as we know it has evolved, how then do we get better, and how then do we do things better than we did them the previous year?
Sure. So we could possibly still see the Telkom Netball League later on in the year, or are there just too many things on the calendar that it might clash with?
Well, the president has come out and said TNL will happen this year, by hook or by crook, right? So
that sounds like
but also at the same time, we need to be mindful of the risks involved there. So we can't put people's lives at risk because the president said so, right?
Yeah.
So what everybody's hoping for, from the sponsors to the federation and to the players or the teams, is that netball should happen TNL should happen this year, right?
Yeah.
So we have a meeting tomorrow, just to figure out what needs to happen next. Obviously, that also depends on what the president of the country will be saying today, from a lockdown restrictions point of view, right? So to answer your question, we will possibly see TNL happening later than scheduled. Within this year, though, I think.
Yeah.
We were planning on having it over an 8-week period, starting May up until July, across 3 provinces. We might see it happening it's going to happen later than scheduled. It might not happen across 3 provinces. It might happen within 2, or might happen within 1 province. It might not be 8 weeks anymore. It might be shorter than that. We don't know yet what will happen, but what we know for sure is that we are planning and hoping that we have got netball, or the Telkom Netball League, happening in 2020.
Yeah. And I'm about to let you go, but just how's our president doing? I know she's now recovered from COVID-19. I was worried about you because you always with her, and I'm like, oh, Nnusi, no, not you too. You negative. That was good.
If I can tell you the frustration and the stress that came with that, with the news of the president testing positive, it was because so the day that she got her results, she called me in the morning to say, listen, I need to tell you something. I said, okay, what's up? She's like, no, I've just got my results and I've tested positive. All right? I said to her, okay, sorry to hear that. What do you need from me? She's like, well, we need to tell the world that I've tested positive. That's what we need to do first, right? And then we'll figure things out as we go along. Again, this is where I was supposed to have panicked, and but I didn't. I said to her, okay, we need to do what needs to be done. So the weirdest thing is that we issued a statement that about I think it was about 12 o'clock in the afternoon, right?
Yeah.
As early as 10 past 12, my phone started ringing, right? And this is from people asking me, are you okay? Have you tested as well? What needs to happen next? So none of the people that called me were asking about, we saw your statement about the president, we want an interview with the president, right? These are people that were saying to me, well, we've seen you with the president, so where are you sitting right now, right? And then, I mean, so I then had to start, fielding all calls from everybody. This is people saying we want an interview with the president, people checking up on me if I'm okay.
But isn't that good at first that they worried about the human aspect first before the official press release? Like, would they worry about?
I think that was the most amazing thing, and so the people that were calling me were not even my family members, right? So this is journalists that I had shared the statement with, who were calling and say, I just got your press release. Are you okay?
Yeah. Because right? I think I sent you WhatsApp as well.
Yes. Yeah. Right? So everyone was like, are you okay? And I'm like, well, I don't know. As far as I know, I'm fine, but I don't know. I haven't checked this yet. So as soon as I know, and I think I went to go test the following day, but I can tell you that every single day, between the day that the statement was issued and until the day I got my results, people were calling me and checking up if I'm okay.
Wow.
Right? And very few people were asking for interviews with the president, but the bulk of the calls that I got were about, how are you doing? Are you fine? Did you go get tested? Please let me know. Please keep me posted. And so when I got my results back, there was a sigh of relief, well, from me, number one, and from everybody else, secondary to that. And I think which for me was heartwarming, because people didn't see me as a source of information, but people saw me as a person, first and foremost. They cared about my health and my well-being before they cared about the sport, which then said to me, I value the people that I surround myself with, right? Because then they see me as a human being, but not as another person that they need to speak to when they need the president or the player or a coach.
Now that is beautiful. So we know that we are in this pandemic and we don't know when it's going to stop. We don't know when the lockdown is going to be lifted. What's just your message, as Netball SA, as Nnusi, to, the public, and, just a message of encouragement? People are becoming restless. I mean, when I step outside, people are just wandering the streets. Like, they're just like, it's cartel.
I don't know how they do it, yeah.
I know, but I think I know I'm even getting to take a jog. So
yeah, look, I think to answer the first part of your question, the president is doing very well. So she has recovered, as all of us know, that she's recovered from COVID-19. She's in high spirits. She's ready to go. She has been asking me, when are we going back? And because she says she even wants to play netball this year during the Telecom Netball League. So we might see a celebrity game where she's playing
nice.
there. So she's ready to go. But my message to everybody is, I think what the lockdown has really taught us, it has taught us a new way of life, right? It has encouraged us to start doing things differently. And we've adopted very good traits along the way, right? So such as consistently wash your hands, right? When you cough or when you sneeze, have an etiquette to use your elbow or tissues. Social distancing. So I think those are some of the things that we need to start taking with going. So that should be the new way of life. So that's how we should be, carrying ourselves going forward. Let's stay safe. Let's take all the necessary precautions to ensure that we remain vigilant and stay negative and always make sure that we do the right things. And really let's I think what this thing has taught us, it has taught us to take extra care of ourselves, and I think we need to carry on doing exactly that, where we understand that personal hygiene is important, and I think we should consistently adhere to that. And I think we just need to bear for a little longer. It will get better with time. I think it will get better with time, and we just need to be extra patient. And I understand the cabin fever. I feel like that as well. I feel like I've seen the walls of my house, and I've noticed things that I've never noticed before in my own house, right? So yes, it gets a bit frustrating that guys, I've been stuck indoors the whole day. I can't even go for a jog. I can't even go for a walk to the shops. And I get it's frustrating, but it's done for the greater good. So I think we just need to ensure that we stick to that. We uphold the law. We stick to the restrictions that have been given to us, and really, we will turn the corner eventually, and things will get better. And then life, as it has changed. We just need to also evolve with it, so that we're able to then to do the things that we want to do in a more safer and a more guided society.
Nnusi Gazi, Communications Manager of Netball South Africa. Thank you so much for coming onto my channel, Beyond the Star. You are our star for today, so we got to sit down with you, Nnusi, and thank you so much for opening up, your home. I saw some footsteps there in the corner somewhere. I don't know who was going up and down the stairs earlier. Someone was going up and down the stairs there.
Well, we'll go find out who was walking up the stairs. But thank you so much, Mbali, for having me. I think it's been a pleasure. I think one of the things that I really don't do often is speak about myself. I think it takes a lot out of me to do that, and purely because I never know where to start, right? Because it's a thing that I battle with, and I've done that for the longest of time, that I don't want to sound very conceited and speak about myself. So I generally refrain from doing that. It's a bad trait to have, and I end up talking about what I do versus talking myself. Right. So you've allowed me the opportunity to juggle the two and really speak about me, the person, and also speak about what the person does as well. So thank you very much for that.
Well, like you said, you love telling stories. That's what this channel is all about. It's about telling people stories, because I know you on a professional level, and I know you also now on a personal level as well. So it's very important for me to also just to know Nnusi behind, the title of Communications Manager, because there's always a story behind the person. And so this is what this channel is all about, telling people stories. And guys, Nnusi doesn't want to go home. He lives in Rustenburg. He doesn't want to go home to Rusty Tasty. I don't know what's wrong with him, but it's okay.
Listen, I'm at my best when I'm here. So here has allowed me to really give you the best of myself. And I think, look, you will see the reasons why I didn't want to go when this lockdown is over, because we have just launched the new Netball South Africa website.
Yes.
So everything that you read about netball is stored there, right? We have also launched the new NSA YouTube channel as well. So
nice.
All the content from the World Cup to the England series to Africa Netball Cup, TNL for last year, all of that information.
Yay!
So
Finally!
Is why I didn't go. This is why I didn't go. Because
finally, beautiful. Finally, absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Now I'm excited. I'm gonna check out the content and check out the website to see also what stuff are there. I want to see your work. Nnusi.
Thank you.
No, but thank you. I support your work. Thank you so much for taking your time and chatting to us, and all the best moving forward, and we'll stay in touch.
Thank you so much. Have a good one.